we're sewing a matching skirt to the top from the previous tutorial, the SunBellSkirt. It's also a beginner-friendly pattern without zippers and any difficult elements. Also, from this tutorial you can learn how to sew a slit in the neatest way, even if you don't have a serger. We will need an elastic thread for the waistband, any lightweight but not transparent fabric. Also, you can try to make an autumn skirt from the lightweight wool fabric. Also, narrow ribbon for hangers and a tiny piece of woven interfacing. Prepare your fabric and assemble the pattern pieces. Make note that the back piece should be cut on the fold and front piece from one layer of fabric. Always check if the grain line is exactly parallel to the selvage. Also, don't forget to cut a belt loop piece and don't cut it into sections yet. Let's start with the slit. On the wrong side of the front piece, cover the slit notch with a small interfacing piece and iron it on. Fold the front slit edges over 5 mm towards the wrong side and press. Repeat everything for the second front piece. If it is difficult for you to iron the 5 mm fold, I suggest you mark in 1 cm along the edge and fold it to this line. Now place the right and left front edges right side together, ignoring the folds we have ironed. Treat them like usual edges. Stitch 6 mm until the slit notch. Make several additional back stitches at the slit opening to reinforce this seam. Put the seam open. Press it like this if you want, leaving the pre-folded edges intact. Top stitch the seam 5 mm from the center, making sure you catch the folded edge. Navigate by the presser foot and put this edge next to the center of the seam. Continue stitching along the slit, folding the edge over 6 mm one more time. Don't rush, work with short distances. Repeat on the second side of the slit. Make a few back stitches at the slit opening, perpendicular to the seam to reinforce it. Press everything well. Now assemble the front and the back. Place them right sides together and sew the side seams. Finish the seam allowance with an overlocker or zigzag stitch working from the front. Press the seams toward the back. Fold the hem over 5 mm towards the wrong side and press. It makes finishing the edge easier. If you're not sure about the skirt length yet, skip this step for now and finish the hem later. Fold the hem over 6 mm one more time. A life hack: if the fabric isn't moving well on the very edge when you start stitching, pull the threads a little bit. Stitch as close as possible to the pre-folded edge. I'm navigating by the marking on my sewing machine, placing the edge next to it so the seam is even from the right side. Press the hem. A tip: make upside down movements when your edge is stretched out. Time for a waistband. Fold the two waistband pieces in half lengthwise and press. Pressing the pieces while they are flat is easier. Place them right sides together and sew the waistband side seams. Press the side seam open and then fold the waistband in half and press the side seam areas again. Pin the raw edges of the folded waistband to the right side of the skirt waist. Treat the waistband as one layer. Match the side seams and center notches. Sew the waist seam. Baste or make an additional stitch along the waistband bottom to stabilize it if needed. Finish the seam with an overlocker or zigzag stitch, working from the waistband side. Press the waist seam towards the skirt. The waistband should look like this, and now we will make the first shirring line next to the seam. Put an elastic thread in the lower bobbin. You can see in my previous video about the top how to set a shirring. You will find the information in the instruction of this pattern. Create the shirring by stitching 1 or 2 mm from the waist seam, starting next to one of the side seams. Work from the right side. Backstitch at the beginning and the end of stitch line. Place your pressing foot as if you were understitching. Make one more stitch line parallel to the first one. The distance between the shirring stitch lines should be 6 mm. The same way, make 6 more stitch lines working towards the waistband top edge. If the frill rolls towards the outside, steam it slightly at a distance, don't touch it with an iron. Let's move to the belt loops. Finish one long edge of the belt loop piece with an overlocker or zigzag, working from the right side. Fold the raw edge over 6 mm and press. Fold the finish edge over 6 mm. Stitch 2 mm from the edge. Stitch 2 mm from the second edge, making sure you catch the folded overlocked edge. Press the belt loop piece once again. Now cut this piece in 5 sections as marked on the pattern piece. Mark the belt loop placement. The first loop should be next to the slit seam. The second loop is at the center back. Insert a pin here or mark it with a chalk. To find the third loop placement, measure the distance between the first two loops. Divide it in half and mark the third loop placement. Measure the same distance from the center back on the opposite side twice and mark the fourth and fifth loops placement. Distance between two front loops should be the same as the distance between the two back loops. Fold over 5 mm on both ends of the loop piece towards the wrong side and place one end as a waist seam and the other at the last shirring line. Top stitch each end to the waistband with a dance stitch or zigzag stitch. Repeat for the remaining loops. Place the short ends of the belt pieces right sides together and sew. Press the seam open. Fold the band in half with the right side to the inside and stitch along the long edge, leaving an approximately 5 cm long opening somewhere near the center of the belt. With the tip of an iron, press the seam open. Position the seam so that it sits along the center of the belt. Sew the corner diagonally. Trim the corners and seam allowances. Pin a safety pin to the corner seam allowance and turn the belt inside out through the opening. Repeat for the second side. Press the belt, keeping the seam along the center of the whole belt. Make sure the seam allowance remain open inside the belt. Hand stitch the opening closed. Cut two 25 cm long pieces of narrow ribbon. Fold them in half and heat seal the ends together. Place the loops on the side seams and sandwich them between the seam allowance and the top fold of the waistband. Insert the belt in the belt loops and the skirt is ready. It's time for a fitting. I would love to see your version. Post your makes to Instagram with the hashtag SunBellSkirt.